After 30 years sitting across from families, I keep hearing the same 5 regrets. They don't just sting, they actually quietly ruin retirement. And here's the surprising part. Most of these regrets, they aren't about money at all. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 5 biggest regrets I hear again and again. These are the ones that can actually ruin your retirement if you're not careful. And most importantly, I'm going to show you how to avoid them. My name is Chris McClure, and every week I share real stories from retirement. I share the good ones, the messy ones, and the funny detours that no one really puts in a glossy brochure. If you want these insights and you enjoy watching these videos, please make sure to hit subscribe. They might be helpful to watch even before you need them. The first regret is they waited too long to figure out what they really wanted. I've seen it so many times. The last day at the office, it's a big send-off, they have a cake and maybe even a gold watch. They leave thinking, this is it, I've got freedom. And for the first 6 months, it really feels that way. They're traveling, they're sleeping in, they're spending time with their dogs, they've got some projects around the house, but then something changes. By the second year, the excitement wears off and the days they start to blur. They're not broke, they're not sick, they're just bored. And so one client told me it felt like living on a permanent Sunday afternoon. And you know what Sundays are like. They're fine when Monday's coming, but they're endless when it's not. When I was a kid on Sunday afternoon, we used to watch Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. And we knew we had to go to school the next day. And I hated Sunday afternoons. Imagine having a whole life of Sunday afternoons. Another man, he admitted that he used to make up fake meetings on his calendar just so he'd feel like he still had structure. Every Tuesday morning, he'd drive to Starbucks at 10 a.m. like it was a board meeting. He would laugh about it when he told me, but underneath it was serious. He needed some rhythm. He needed some structure in his life. And this isn't just 1 or 2 people. I've seen it happen with dozens of people. They all fall into this trap. It's retirees who thought they loved the endless free time, only to discover that a blank calendar feels more like quicksand than freedom. One woman told me the hardest part wasn't missing my paycheck, it was missing the feeling of being needed. She didn't expect that. She thought retirement would feel like an extended vacation, and instead she felt like she was drifting. You see, the happiest retirees, they don't wait until retirement to figure this out. They actually practice. They try hobbies, they volunteer, they build social routines years in advance. One of my clients started test driving retirement 5 years early. He cut back hours at work and spent Fridays volunteering, taking guitar lessons, and planning weekend trips. By the time he retired fully, he didn't face the dreaded empty calendar. He had a full playbook. Another woman started a small side passion while still working. She led a book club. That one little commitment gave her rhythm, it gave her friends, and it gave her something to look forward to. And she told me when I finally retired, I didn't lose my purpose, I just gained more time for it. I even knew a man who treated his Saturdays like practice retirements. Instead of chores, he blocked off time for golf or lunch with friends or small trips. By the time his last day of work arrived, he already knew exactly how he wanted to spend a Tuesday morning. And the regret I hear most often is I wish I started planning my life sooner, not just my money. And so the second regret folks have is they never learned how to enjoy their own money. I've met countless people who did everything right. They did everything right financially. They saved diligently, they invested wisely, and they retired with more than enough. But when it came time to spend, they just couldn't do it. One couple dreamed of Italy. They could easily afford it, but every year something came up. Markets dipped, premiums rose, or they told themselves maybe next year. Then her health failed. They never went. Her husband told me later, we had the money the whole time. What we didn't have was the confidence to use it. See, that's the heart of this regret. After decades of saving, people can't flip the switch. They're so used to protecting every dollar that when it's time to enjoy life, they freeze. And those who do spend often do it with guilt. I had a client who set aside money for golf. His wife joked it was the hidden budget category. And he laughed, but underneath he admitted it was his biggest fear wasn't running out of money, it was her finding out how much golf really cost. Another man confessed he'd buy something small like a new fishing rod or tickets to a baseball game and then spend the next week feeling guilty. He told me I can afford it, but I've trained myself for 40 years to say no. I don't know how to say yes. The retirees who get this right do one thing differently. They put structure around spending. They have buckets, guardrails, and the plan itself gives them permission to say yes. One woman I worked with built a bucket list budget into her retirement plan. Every year, she had $15,000 set aside for travel or hobbies. She told me that budget is my freedom pass. She didn't just save money, she bought confidence. Another couple set up 3 separate buckets. They had an essentials bucket, a lifestyle bucket, and a legacy bucket. Essentials were covering bills. Lifestyle was covering fun, and legacy was for kids and charity. And that framework that gave them freedom to actually use their money without guilt. I've seen other retirees have yes funds. One client had a separate checking account labeled fun money. He said, if there's money in that account, I have to spend it. It sounds silly, but it worked. He finally gave himself permission because no one ever says, I wish I worried about money more. The regrets come from saying no too often. The third regret is they let their health slip and it cost them everything they wanted it to do. I've had clients with plenty of money tell me, Chris, the money's there, but the health isn't. One man, he dreamed of Paris. And by the time he retired, just walking through the airport was exhausting. Another had visions of hiking Yellowstone or Yosemite, but he had knee replacements and back problems and they ended those dreams. Meanwhile, I have an 85-year-old widow who still skis in the Alps every winter. She's in the same retirement stage, but she has a total different experience. The difference is that they treated their health like part of their portfolio. They had exercise, checkups, good habits, not perfection, but intention. One man told me gym membership was the best investment I ever made. It bought me an extra decade of golf, and he wasn't joking. He valued that decade more than any market return. Another woman told me, my walking group is my retirement plan. Twice a week, she and her neighbors walk 3 miles, then they have coffee together. For her, it's health, it's community, and it's super fun. And here's what's sneaky about this regret. It doesn't just show up overnight. For the first few years of retirement, people feel fine. Then slowly they miss a doctor visit, they skip exercise, they have bad habits, they start drinking, too much coffee, whatever it is. By the time the decline shows up, it's too late. One man I know had always dreamed of doing a cross-country RV trip, but he postponed it until he was in his late 70s. And by then he had mobility issues, right? He couldn't walk. And making long drives, he just couldn't do it. He told me, I had the money, I had the RV, but my body, my strength just couldn't keep on going. And so the folks that get this, they don't wait. They build healthy routines. They don't have to be all-star athletes or super weightlifters. They just treat a daily walk or stretching or light strength training with the same importance as paying a bill. They work out a little bit. They take walks. They do yoga, whatever. One man I worked with joked, I used to invest in the S&P 500. Now I invest in 30 minutes on the treadmill. I guess if I were him, I'd take a walk outside, not the treadmill. And he said that the return of taking a walk was priceless. And nobody puts bad knees or diabetes on their bucket list, but if you don't invest in health, that's what's going to happen. Regret number 4, and the fourth regret, is that they thought money was enough. At first, they're excited, they hit their number, they hand in their badge at work, and they think the hard part's over. But then the quiet sets in. The office phone stops ringing, nobody needs them to solve any problems. And that's when it hits. Money doesn't replace purpose. People organize their garage 3 times in 1 month. That's not purpose, that's punishment. The happiest retirees find meaningful things to do. They mentor kids, they serve on nonprofit boards, they host neighbors, or they have old hobbies. One woman told me when I sat back down at the piano after 30 years, it felt like a part of me came back to life, and she started teaching piano lessons. Another man who had been a CEO started teaching business classes at a local college. He said, I never thought I'd be back in the classroom, but it makes me feel alive. One couple started hosting monthly dinner parties for their neighbors. They said it just gave them more joy than any vacation because it kept them connected. I also had a client who became part of a youth coach. He said he never expected to enjoy working with teenagers, but it gave him structure and purpose, something money alone could never buy. He just loved coaching soccer. Purpose doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It just has to matter to you. And every client who figured this out says the same thing. I wish I did this sooner. The fifth regret, they retired into the wrong environment. One couple built their dream home in the mountains. It was a perfect deck, a gorgeous view, but 6 months in, they said, we were screwed up here. We don't know a soul. The house was perfect, the community wasn't. They were all so freezing cold because they were in the mountains. And retirement gets lonely fast without people. Another couple bought into a community that promised pickleball and happy hours. It looked great in the brochure, but when they moved in, they realized these aren't our people. They sold within a year. The retirees who get this right, they test drive their decisions. They rent before they buy. They spend seasons in different places. They ask, are these our people? Can we have fun here? Do we want to be here long term? One client rented a condo in Arizona for 3 winters. By the third, they said, this feels like home, let's buy. Another family spent a year living near their adult children before committing to a move. They said this year taught them more than any brochure ever could. I even had a client who joined 3 different pickleball leagues before choosing which community to live in. He told me I wasn't picking a house, I was picking my pickleball people. Because when you buy a retirement home, you're not just buying real estate, you're buying belonging. And so here are the 5 regrets I see most often. Waiting too long to figure out what you really want, never learning how to enjoy your money, letting health slip away, thinking money was enough, and retiring in the wrong place. The good news is every one of these is avoidable, but only if you act early. So let me ask you a question. Which of these 5 regrets worries you the most? If you have an answer, drop it in the comments below. And here's one more question. Which of these do you think your future self would warn you about someday? Sometimes the best perspective comes when we look ahead. My name is Chris McClure, and every week I share these real stories from retirement. And sometimes they're good, like I said, sometimes they're messy, and sometimes they're super funny. So if you'd like to subscribe, you'll get these insights every single week. And if any of this sounds familiar, you shouldn't wait. Let's talk about how I can help you avoid these regrets before they happen. And you can feel free to sign up for an appointment with the link below. I really do love making these videos, and I hope you'll join me on the next one.